We are currently in the price discovery phase, and this phase is about to get particularly interesting. Tensions between Iran and Israel are escalating. It looks like China and the USA might get involved as well, but there's also a lot happening in the space otherwise. We'll definitely discuss all of that in just a moment. First, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a like and a comment on the video. Thank you very much for that. And definitely join our Telegram channel. There we also discuss some new projects from time to time, or this and that, and keep each other a bit up to date. So make sure to join us there. The link is in the description. We're currently in a bit of a price discovery phase because we've been hovering around our old all-time high for a while now. We're struggling a bit to break through the all-time high and ideally to stay above it sustainably. There's also quite a bit of liquidity here, again, at $109,000. I don't think the market makers will want to miss out on that. We already partially tested this zone yesterday, but then suddenly those news reports about Iran and so on came out. But I would say let's just briefly discuss this Iran issue because there's no point in talking about it for hours again. Instead, let's first talk about what the current phase is. Because in the short term, as I showed you over the past few days, I expect that we'll see a bounce above here, then come back down again, and from there, the bigger leg up will start toward $110,000. That was our scenario. Or we come down here, test this area again, and then continue to rise. And it looks like this scenario is playing out. So I have currently opened long positions in this area because to us, it simply looks like a retest of the zone. And I think from here, we continue to rise up to $110,000. And I'll definitely take those 2, 3, 4% with a 50x leverage. And that quickly becomes almost 200%. That's my forecast. I know that making predictions makes me vulnerable, but I'm confident. The probability that will go up is at least higher. Sure, but we can also correct it. And yes, there are just a few things in this cycle that are slowly coming to a head. Because, I mean, you can see this is out of the bear market. Bitcoin, ETFs, Trump victory. Right now, we're in a kind of discovery phase where we haven't properly broken through our all-time high yet. It would be interesting if we could finally break through the all-time high properly now. That should actually be the point when the altcoins should get a bit more of the pie as well. But I deliberately marked this zone like this because this is now the last final bull run zone. In this zone, the next big upward trend will happen, and it will also be the final and last upward trend. Hopefully, this will also come together with a gigantic altcoin season, because what we have to keep in mind is this. About 500 days before the halving is usually the best time to buy, and 500 days after the halving is often the best time to sell. But these are just rough numbers, data, and facts. In terms of timing, we would only have until around November or December of this year, and at the latest from then on, we would move back into a major bear market, which could of course lead to corrections of up to 80%. That's basically what time and data are actually telling us. We're now really entering this final phase of the cycle if you compare everything with the past and if things aren't completely different this time. And so far the cycle isn't completely different. There are differences of course, but overall everything is relatively similar. The problem with this whole topic is we simply have less and less time. I mean, this is the Bitcoin dominance chart. From 2017 to the bottom, it took 12 months. So 12 months during which Bitcoin dominance fell. 12 months where we basically had an altcoin season where the altcoins performed very well. After that, we had 34 months where we only had a Bitcoin season. For years, only Bitcoin performed well. Then in 2021, this altcoin phase was already much shorter, only 9 months. But in this cycle, we really have a massive Bitcoin season. And if the timing and data play out like this, we only have a maximum of 5 months left of a Bitcoin season. So the Bitcoin season is significantly shorter in comparison, but probably more compact and explosive. I mean, you have to imagine for a project like Chaining, purely from the chart analysis, I set price targets of at least $83, and we're currently at $13. That means we would be making almost 500 or 600% in 3 or 4 months on a project like Chaining, based on my analysis alone. Of course, it doesn't have to play out that way, but as you can see, the sideways window is getting narrower and the upward trend will have to become significantly more explosive as a result. Even here in the last cycle, we saw that the upward trend was pretty rapid, but it lasted much longer than the time we have left now. It was basically bullish in an uptrend for over a year. We won't see that anymore with altcoins in this cycle. Cardano also rose really strongly back in 2021, but even then it was almost a whole year during which Cardano kept climbing. We won't see anything like that in this cycle anymore, just based on past patterns. And that's because we really don't have much time left with the altcoins in relative terms. The time is much shorter. But as I said, that's why I expect this explosive phase to come faster and more intensely. That's all I have to say on that topic for now. Very few people pay attention to this, but the window in which altcoins can really perform is getting smaller every day. Now let's talk a bit about the situation between Iran and Israel. We've now seen that Trump has called on people to flee Tehran, which is the capital city of Iran. And that already suggests that the USA is going to get involved. The problem is Trump apparently wanted to make a deal with Iran, but Iran apparently did not go along with it. So accordingly, it looks more like the USA is going to get involved. India, in any case, immediately agreed, but then the Chinese president also stepped in and called on his citizens to leave Israel. And you can already see at this stage of escalation how quickly the whole situation can head in a different direction. China would then support Iran, the USA would support Israel, and then we would already have the next widespread war on various levels. That is not good at all, and it could become even bigger than people imagine. And I told you right at the start of the war, I think things are being made out to be worse than they actually are. Everything will turn out fine again, and I still stand by that opinion. Even when we have news like this now, which is really not pleasant at all, you have to imagine Iran was attacked. To save face, Iran, of course, retaliated with bombings the next day or even the same day. On the first day, they fired about 150 rockets over. Most of them were intercepted by the Iron Dome, but a few got through. On the second day, Iran was only able to send over 3 or 4 rockets because, of course, their capacities are running out. Iran is by no means as strong as it is portrayed here. Iran simply doesn't have the means to sustain a war for months on end, and accordingly, I think that both countries could be brought to the negotiating table relatively quickly if, of course, that is what is wanted. If the intention is to escalate the conflict, then China will now supply Iran with bombs and the USA will supply Israel with bombs. Let's just hope that things don't get that bad. But what has to be said, Bitcoin has held up incredibly well so far, and I already showed you that last time. Macroeconomically, we do have a few problems, yes. But just look at Bitcoin. Why is Bitcoin at its current level? For the most part, it's because of the M2 money supply. And here we can clearly see this correlation. Here we went up. When we had a correction phase here, we also had a correction phase in the M2 supply at that time. Currently, we had this larger correction phase. Yes, and we can also see that here in the chart. What should come next, if we continue to follow the M2 money supply, is the next major upward trend. And accordingly, I'm telling you, within the next 30 days, we will see a new all-time high, probably heading towards $120,000. No matter what happens in terms of the global economy, the markets don't care at the moment because the market is being flooded with liquidity. We can especially see this in charts like these. For example, 2 days ago, we saw that so-called whales simply bought up $2.5 billion worth of Ethereum. Last week, we also had another 500 million in inflows into the Ethereum ETF. That's insanely huge, especially since Ethereum's market cap is significantly smaller than Bitcoin's. And with Bitcoin, just last week, IBIT alone had 1.1 billion in inflows. So you can see these institutions are still buying in really heavily right now. No matter what it is, Bitcoin, Ethereum, they're buying in big time. They're extremely optimistic, and that definitely makes me feel very positive as well. And in the past, we've talked about BitSo quite a few times. I still remember the first time we mentioned it, it was at $50, and there's a lot happening here as well. I think this sentence sums it up pretty well. In the last 4 months alone, we've had over 20 additional subnets or AI projects that are building on BitSo. And just these 20 AI projects, if you look at them individually, have a higher market cap than BitSo itself. You can even trade them in different ways now. How awesome is that, really? By now, we have over 123 subnets here. All of them are individual AI projects built on Tau, each creating their own value, massively benefiting from this Tau system, being trained through this network effect. And that's why BitSo is simply the best AI infrastructure we currently have. And I have to be honest, at these prices, I've just bought in again because I still believe that BitSo is the best AI project, and AI is going to be incredibly important in this cycle. And for BitSo as well, I've set price targets for this cycle of at least $2,500. That is our minimum price target. But things will only get really interesting once we break the all-time high. From there, things could move much faster. But truly, it's one of the best altcoins we've added this cycle, and above all, the leader in the AI sector. It's definitely back on my radar right now, and at the moment, I'm slowly starting to accumulate again at these price levels, simply because I find the AI and RWA narratives among the most interesting for this cycle. Just take a look. Where are real-world companies heading? Where are Amazon and Google going? All the companies in the world are pouring multi-billion dollars into AI. That's also the reason why Nvidia is now one of the largest companies in the world, because all these companies need this chip demand, they need these graphics cards, and they get them from Nvidia. We can see in the real world which direction things are heading, and this narrative will also massively benefit in the crypto market. Alright folks, that's it for this video. Thank you, and I'd say see you next time. Ciao.